The Minnesota Vikings lose their season opener 27-24 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Vikings fall to 0-1 on the season, and this was an absolute embarrassment. Both offensively and defensively, this was an awful performance for the Minnesota Vikings. I will say it right now, before we get into this episode, I'll clear the air right now. Yes, Dalvin Cook's knee was down, and it should have been overturned. His knee was obviously down, and it wasn't a fumble. However, the reason why the Vikings lost this game was not because of the refs. I'll say that again. The reason why the Vikings lost this game was not because of that single play made in overtime. The Vikings shouldn't even have been in overtime against the Bengals in the first place. It's a miracle the Vikings made it to overtime. After all the penalties they had, drop passes, terrible plays. Actually, I did like a lot of the play calling. I'll say I did like a lot of the play calling from Clint Kubiak. It was solid. It was better than Gary Kubiak's play calling. Not quite Kevin Stefanski. I would have liked to see some more bootlegs, a lot more play action passes. But with that being said, if you can't establish the run, what's the point of running play action passes, bootlegs anyways? So anyways, Vikings, terrible performance, an absolute embarrassment in Cincinnati. However, also, Vikings right now are winning their division. Believe it or not, the Vikings are winning their division right now, as all four teams in the NFC North lost yesterday and had worse loss than the Vikings. Vikings may have lost 24-27 against the Bengals. However, we didn't have a 33-3 loss against the New Orleans Saints, who just got a new quarterback, when we have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. Good thing we are not the Green Bay Packers. Okay, anyways, clear the air. Saints are a lot better of a team than the Bengals, and Vikings are technically on top of their division, so there's no need to panic, as a lot of the issues we had are fixable. But still, with that being said, this was an awful performance and an absolute embarrassment, and these guys didn't even look like starters out there. A majority of our starters were veteran players, and we're not looking like it at all. So taking a look into this, Vikings, even if they're on top of their division, I still can't believe that. A 3-point loss against an away team, AFC. That's why the Vikings are on top of their division, even though everyone is 0-1. The Vikings lost an away team against an AFC team, and it was just a 3-point loss. So why did the Vikings lose this game? Like I said, it was penalties. That's the main reason why the Vikings lost this game. It is not the refs. Yes, the refs may have caused us to lose, but that's not the reason why the Vikings lost. The core reason why the Vikings lost is what we need to focus on here, and that is the fact that the Vikings had 16 penalties yesterday. 16. Now, not all of those were accepted. 12 of the 16 were accepted. Those 16 penalties: 5 false starts, 6 holdings, offsides, pass interference, unnecessary roughness, and 2 illegal formation. 16 penalties the Vikings had yesterday. Awful performance. I mean, this is just horrendous, and Mike Zimmer has to be as mad as all of us Vikings fans on crack. I mean, 10 times compared to what we are. So this is fixable. I mean, it is a week 1 matchup, and typically you do see a lot more penalties week 1 than you do the rest of the season, and this is a fixable issue here. But when you have this many penalties, you cannot establish the run. You're 1st and 25. What's the point of running through Dalvin Cook? Early in the game, you have to run through Dalvin Cook. 1st and 10, you run. 2nd and 10, 2nd and 6, usually you run. You just run through Dalvin Cook, and he can usually win the game. This is one of those matchups where he should have won us the game. However, when you're 1st and 25, you're not going to run the ball. You're going to have a drop back pass. What happens when you have a drop back pass with an offensive line like the Vikings do? It leads to a sack. Now you're 2nd and 30. This is continuously what we saw from the Minnesota Vikings, and an absolute embarrassment, especially on these penalties, and that's the core reason why the Vikings lost. Now, yes, there was a lot of drop passes, and the referees might have not been our side. However, we have to focus on the penalties here, because that is what held the Vikings back and the core reason why we lost this game. Again, there is some highlights. And I already mentioned Clint Kubiak had good play calling. I mean, when you look at the position that the Vikings team put him in, it was solid play calling. Now, a lot of the times it may have raised an eyebrow when it was just a screen pass and it's 1st and 25 and it was just a screen pass. The reason why the Vikings were running screen passes, check down passes, they had to do this because Kirk Cousins had 3 seconds under center. If you don't run these plays, if you don't do a check down pass, you don't do a screen pass, well, now you have a sack. Choose which one you would rather have, a sack or a screen pass, which can possibly run for 10 yards and pick up a 1st down. Clearly, you would rather do the screen pass. Anyways, another reason why the Vikings lost: blown coverage. I mean, all night. This is one thing going into this game that I was talking about. The Vikings, we should have one of the best teams against the run. We should. With a healthy Anthony Barr, we should have had one of the best teams against the run. I'm shocked what I saw from the Vikings defense yesterday, allowing 136 rushing yards to Joe Mixon. The Vikings should have been a lot better team against the run. Or sorry, that was 127 rushing yards against Joe Mixon, 136 total rushing yards allowed on the ground by the Minnesota Vikings defense. We should have been one of the better teams against the run. The reason why we weren't was because Joe Mixon was running on the outside of the offensive line. He wasn't running through our offensive line where Dalvin Tomlinson, Eric Kendricks, Michael Pierce, these players can stop him. Instead, he was targeting Ryan Connolly on the outside. He was targeting Blake Lynch on the outside, Nick Vigil. He was targeting these outside linebackers going one-on-one against them. And with Joe Mixon's speed, these linebackers have no chance. And that is why the Vikings allowed this many rushing yards against the Bengals, a team we should have held to under 100 rushing yards. On top of that, the Vikings allowed far too many yards when it comes to the pass game with blown coverage on just about every play. T. Higgins wide open on every play. Jamar Chase somehow is getting these huge touchdowns when Jamar Chase was supposed to be a player who's going to drop a lot of passes as he did in preseason. Going against this Vikings secondary, we know how a lot of teams are going to play against us. Teams are going to rush on the outside against this Vikings defense and pass. With that being said, a highlight on this Vikings defense I want to mention here. Vikings did a great job on third down protection and fourth down protection. They held their own. And that is because, like I said, when it's 3rd and 1 this year and when it's 4th and 1, teams are going to have a lot harder time getting just 1 yard against this Vikings defense. Because if you're going to have to rush through the inside of the line, usually you rush to the inside of the line. Now, the Bengals did have a passing play, which was a very smart move for the Bengals to not rush on 4th and 1 for them. They did have the passing play, which led to a scoring drive for the Bengals and an unexpected move for them to make. However, it was a very smart move because they weren't very successful on 3rd and 4th down against this Vikings team, as Dalvin Tomlinson and Michael Pierce are excellent run stoppers. Also, Michael Pierce is the Viking sack leader. That's Michael Pierce, who just made his debut with the Minnesota Vikings yesterday as he opted out the 2020 season due to COVID, made his debut with the Minnesota Vikings team and had 2 sacks yesterday. Excellent performance. I mean, I'll say it right now. These might be the only 2 sacks we see from Michael Pierce on the season. This is his only multi-sack game, and he's not known to be a sack guy. Now, Michael Pierce has a lot of speed for 340 pounds. I mean, he does have a lot of speed. But with that being said, he's 340 pounds. Just about every quarterback can outrun this guy. So in Baltimore, he wasn't known for a sack guy, and I wouldn't expect him to be known for the sack guy with Minnesota. But for him to have 2 sacks on the day, excellent performance, especially when he's 6 foot, 340 pounds. This is a massive guy and was able to rush the passer multiple times and get 2 sacks on the day. And it's not like he was going against any no-name center. He was going against Trey Hopkins, a longtime veteran with the Cincinnati Bengals. So taking a look into this, Vikings did dominate on a lot of aspects of this game. Now, yes, like I said, the penalties held us back. The blown coverage held us back. Drop passes and rushing yards held the Vikings back. However, overall, the Vikings dominated the Cincinnati Bengals when it comes to a lot of key parts of this Minnesota Vikings game. The only categories the Vikings didn't win in was penalties and rushing yards, 2 of which we already talked about on this podcast episode, and really those are fixable issues. I mean, rushing yards, when you have Anthony Barr come back, it should be able to improve there. Now, the secondary allowing a lot of big plays on passing. They had some very explosive plays on offense. That's also fixable. I mean, these guys are young, although Xavier Woods did have a great day. Xavier Woods, the most underrated signing for the Vikings this offseason. I am so happy to have Xavier Woods in purple and gold with this team, as really he's an excellent safety alongside Harrison Smith to have protecting these deep passes. Now, yes, we did see a lot of deep passes yesterday, a lot of blown coverage, especially with Brashad Breeland, who not so great with him so far. He also had that blown coverage in preseason against Tyreek Hill, which I know it's Tyreek Hill. He has track speed. He's going to outrun just about every corner you put on him, except the fact that you put one-on-one coverage against Tyreek Hill outside the numbers. That's just a note. That's textbook what you don't do in the NFL. I mean, Tyreek Hill's going to beat this guy in just about every play. That's why you double team him. It's that simple. And that's why the Vikings really are going to lack. We're going to see this all season. Penalties, that's a fixable issue. Stopping the run, that's another fixable issue. When it comes to explosive plays allowed on defense, we're going to see this all season. And this is because the Vikings really don't have a backup plan here. What did the Bengals have that the Vikings didn't have? The Bengals were able to run the ball. We have a much better running back than the Bengals have. Dalvin Cook, top 3 in the NFL. However, when you have an offensive line an offense as a whole who is doing penalties every single down, you don't have a chance to establish the run. Vikings were unsuccessful when it comes to establishing the run in the first half, as every play, holding foul, pass interference, false start, every single play, you were unable to establish the run. So Dalvin Cook, still top 3 running back in the league. He may have not looked like it yesterday, as he averaged 3.1 yards per carry. This is something you just don't see from Dalvin Cook. That's just unheard of from Dalvin Cook. However, this is no need to panic. I mean, we're in a division where we can run through Dalvin Cook against the Packers. We can run through Dalvin Cook against the Lions. And surprisingly, we can also do it against the Bears at this point. Vikings should be able to dominate this division. They should, with the offense that we have. And if you just fix some of these things, Vikings should come out with a win, a division victory, and I think it's going to happen here. Joe Mixon, 29 carries, 127 rushing yards, 4.4 yards per carry, and a touchdown. The reason why Joe Mixon had 127 rushing yards against a Vikings defense that should be one of the top teams against the run was because, and it's so simple, the fact that they just rushed him on the outside. If they were rushing Joe Mixon through the inside of the offensive line, we would have held him to under 100 rushing yards. And that's why I continuously say the Vikings will be one of the best teams against the run. The reason why is because a few core guys, Dalvin Tomlinson, Michael Pierce, Eric Kendricks. Teams are not going to be able to run through the middle of the offensive line this year, or the middle of the defense this year, as we have those 3 core guys. However, when you have outside linebackers like Nick Vigil, you have outside, actually he had a great day yesterday, like Ryan Connolly, Troy Dye, a lot of these young guys who are inexperienced players, and you don't have Anthony Barr on the outside, you can put him one-on-one against these linebackers, and he's going to outrun them. It's just what we saw yesterday, and it's what we're going to continue to see as long as Anthony Barr does not return, or if we have defensive ends who know how to stop the run. And I'll say it again. The Vikings, yes, the refs were on the Bengals side. Yes, Dalvin Cook's knee was down. We knew the refs were not going to be on our side going into this game. We knew the refs were going to be awful going into this game. But that's not the reason why the Vikings lost. The reason why the Vikings lost was penalties. The reason why the Vikings lost was dropped passes. The reason why the Vikings lost was blown coverage on defense. These are the 3 reasons why the Vikings lost, and refs might come forth after that, as the Vikings shouldn't even have been in overtime against the Bengals. If you didn't have the penalties that you had, Vikings would have won the game in the first half. This should have been an easy win for the Vikings. And now we have to start the season 0-1, going with not a very easy schedule coming forward. I mean, we have the Arizona Cardinals and Seattle Seahawks coming up. Both just dominated their performance yesterday. So this should have been an easy win for the Vikings. However, now we have to go into this next few games with a lot better performance than we had against the Bengals, or else we're going to finish this season 0-16 or 0-17 now. So even amid the Vikings lost, they are on top of the division now. Again, that's week 1. They're on top of their division, 0-1. Still not much excitement there. However, there is a lot of highlights on this Vikings team that I want to mention here, because we just went over the reason why the Vikings lost. We just went over what the Vikings need to fix. There was a lot of very good things I did see from the Vikings. Starting off with Adam Thielen. Adam Touchdown Thielen is back. In 2020, Adam Thielen had 14 receiving touchdowns, which was 3rd in the NFL, only behind Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. Adam Thielen is back, and he is going to be utilized in the red zone, utilize our number 1 target in the red zone all season long, as we don't have Irv Smith Jr., we don't have B.C. Johnson, Chad Beebe. All these guys are gone. Now we're stuck with Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and Tyler Conklin, and KJ Osborne, which actually that's not as bad as it may seem. You can also use Amir Abdullah as your running back 5 if you want to. So Adam Thielen is back, had 2 receiving touchdowns against the Cincinnati Bengals, and I would expect him to be top 5 in receiving touchdowns once again this season. Next up, KJ Osborne and Tyler Conklin stepped up. Going into this game, we talked about on the preview, and we talked about all season long, all offseason, Vikings need another wide receiver to step up. And then what did we have after that? B.C. Johnson, torn ACL. Chad Beebe out for the season. Irv Smith Jr. out for the season with a meniscus injury. Now we have Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, 2 excellent targets on offense. Who's going to be that other guy? Because yes, having an excellent wide receiver duo can win you games. We need other players to step up. Wow, did KJ Osborne step up? KJ Osborne yesterday, 7 receptions on 9 targets with 76 receiving yards. That was second on the Vikings offense behind Adam Thielen and above Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson did actually have a good day. Even statistically, he may not seem like he had a good day. He came up in clutch performances, and also Justin Jefferson had 11 passing yards, giving him 112.5 passer rating and a 100 completion percentage. So probably the only player in the NFL that actually have a 100% completion percentage. Good job by Justin Jefferson there. Little off stat because he is a wide receiver. But anyways, KJ Osborne and Tyler Conklin did step up. I had no doubt Tyler Conklin was going to be a solid tight end starting. Thing is, he's not going to be as good as Irv Smith Jr. would be, but it's still good that we do have Tyler Conklin on a roster who can be that tight end number 1. He had 4 receptions on 4 targets for 41 receiving yards on the day. So good performance from Tyler Conklin. Excellent performance from KJ Osborne. KJ Osborne had one of the biggest plays, the biggest play in the first half when he got that first down, broke that tackle against Eli Apple, and tried to hurdle Jesse Bates. I remember that. That scared me. My heart stopped. One thing in the NFL, I'll say it. I don't like hurdles. I think when you hurdle defenders, it's what you're doing is you're asking for an injury. Now, we've seen some great hurdles before. I mean, just last year, Brandon Ayuk had an excellent hurdle. Saquon Barkley is known for hurdling players, and it does work. A lot of the times it does work, but when you see a player come up like that and go into the air like that, the way he can land on his leg and easily be out with a season injury. That's exactly what we don't want to see from KJ Osborne, who has huge shoes to fill year 2 going into the Minnesota Vikings team. So KJ Osborne, I recommend you don't do any more hurdles like that because that scared me, and you can easily land on your leg wrong and you're out with a season-ending injury. So I get it, you were trying to be Brandon Ayuk there hurdling Jesse Bates, but it's not going to work when you're like that. So anyways, he should have just went out of bounds there, but that's just me being worried because I can't see another season-ending injury on this Vikings offense, as we've seen far too many this offseason thus far. And it'd be terrible to see KJ Osborne also go out with an injury, especially when he's looking this good in the season so far. With that being said, Justin Jefferson did have a solid performance. Vikings offense as a whole did look good. Kirk Cousins, again, when it comes to fourth quarter, Kirk Cousins in 2020 was the top-ranked fourth quarter quarterback by PFF. You saw it again. Kirk Cousins is great in clutch performances. I don't know what the media is saying. Every time I turn on the media and they talk about Kirk Cousins, they say he's poor in clutch performances. He can't make it. He can't win the big game. He can't do this. Well, the eye test says otherwise. I've watched every Viking snap that I can remember of. Kirk Cousins is good in the fourth quarter. Kirk Cousins is good when it comes to clutch performances. He led this team to overtime in a game that looked like it was unwinnable. Kirk Cousins did have a good performance in the fourth quarter, excellent performance in the fourth quarter, and actually in overtime as well with the chances that he was given. The first half as a whole was a little bit different of a story, but in the second half, Kirk Cousins really came together. This offense did come together. There was a lot less holding fouls, a lot less penalties, false starts, and the Vikings offense was looking solid in the second half. So Kirk Cousins, 351 passing yards, 73 completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, and a 106 passer rating. I'm surprised that was only a 106 passer rating, but again, in the first half, he did overthrow a lot of his targets. And then finally, another huge highlight from this Vikings defense that you love to see. Vikings had a pass rush. It's been so long since we've seen the Vikings be good at rushing the passer. And I can't say this season that they're going to be good at rushing the passer. I mean, going into this season, I was saying that the Vikings pass rush is a huge question mark. And yesterday looked great. And I love to see it. Vikings had 5 sacks on the day. Now, yes, it's 5 sacks. We've seen in 2017, 2018, 2019, 5 sacks is just okay for the Vikings. However, compared to last year, this is a huge upgrade to have 5 sacks and 7 tackles for losses on the day. Great performance when it comes to the pass rush for the Vikings. It blew my expectations out the water. Now, again, this is week 1 and the rest of the season can go differently, but just having Danielle Hunter back was such a relief because DJ Wanham and Stephen Weatherly, if these guys started out the season, or even with Everson Griffin as well, this would have been awful, and this is not what we would like to see. So Nick Vigil did have a sack. Michael Pierce had 2 sacks and is leading the team in sacks. That came out of nowhere. He only has 3.5 sacks on his career before this. Danielle Hunter had a sack yesterday. his returning sack, first sack since 2019. Harrison Smith also had a sack when they rushed him. So with Anthony Barr coming back, Vikings pass rush should be a lot better. Now, again, it's still a question mark when it comes to the Vikings pass rush. However, on third down, Vikings seem to really be able to easily get to the pass rusher on third down. And the reason why was because they were rushing Sheldon Richardson and Everson Griffin on the interior side of the lines. I love to see that. That's what you love to see. We had a defensive front with DJ Wanham, Everson Griffin, Sheldon Richardson, and DJ Wanham on third down. 4 excellent pass rushers. You sit Dalvin Tomlinson, you sit Michael Pierce, and you're able to get to the passer with ease. And that's what I like to see for the Vikings team. When it comes to third and long, Vikings are easily able to rush the passer without blitzing too, which is great. And then also, if Anthony Barr is back, Vikings should be a lot better of a team when it comes to against the run, against the pass. Vikings should be able to perform a lot better, as we won't have Ryan Connolly starting at strong side linebacker, or Blake Lynch starting at strong side linebacker, who started yesterday's game. So they're going to have to fix a lot of these issues going into week 2, where they're going to play the Arizona Cardinals going to Arizona to take on the Cardinals this Sunday, 3:05 Central Time. So we're going to be previewing this matchup on Thursday, and we're also going to be taking a look into a lot of plays. We're going to be doing our first film room tomorrow that I hope you all can watch on YouTube or listen on the podcast, where you can tune into the play calling, the reviewing the plays that we will be doing on YouTube. So I hope you all do enjoy that.